control. Her gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She comes with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to the Paranormal Portal. It's our Friday 2-hour episode, and we've got a doozy lined up for you guys tonight. This is extraordinarily exciting, and it should be a great show. So I hope you guys are doing great out there. Lots of madness still in the world, but we hope you're coping with it really well as can be expected anyway. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, joining us all the way from Australia is the founder of the Australia Research Group, let me just make sure I get this right because I'm a little nervous. Australian Yowie Research, the webmaster of YowieHunters.com, Mr. Dean Harrison is joining us. Welcome to the show, Dean.
Good evening, Brent, and welcome to my show.
It's our show, and I'm really thrilled you're here. This is a great opportunity, and thank you so much for agreeing to come on. This is a real pleasure and a real honor to have a chance to talk to you.
It's not something that I normally do, as most people know, but you are a friend of mine, Brett, and I'm happy to be here.
Oh, well, thanks a lot. And ladies and gentlemen, the phone lines won't be opened until maybe later in the show, but we're just going to have a nice conversation between now and then and get to know the man who has been doing this for over 2 decades and has been really on the front lines of Yowie research and information in Australia. He's often heard on many television stations and doing interviews all over for print and television and so on. And you are a machine, first of all. I just got to tell you, you're really out there doing the work. You're not just an armchair cerebral person. You are out there pounding the sticks, getting to this, huh?
Yeah, well, particularly back in the early days, we really got our hands dirty. We did the hard yards. There was a lot of people out there that we used to call couch researchers or armchair researchers, and we were the guys out there doing it for real, and we were getting calls out to all these places all over the country, all over Australia actually. People were asking for help, but I'll backtrack on all that and we'll get to the important part, and that's more about the Australian Yowie in itself. Now, in comparison to, say, the American Bigfoot, yeah, we both have that. We both have the large hominid type primordial creature, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and the Yowie. But in Australia, we seem to have a couple of other smaller species, a smaller variety, which is very unique. These can be described in different ways. And through the witness testimonies and the interviews that we do, they'll talk about something that is more of a man's size, but extremely primordial at the same time, more of like a monkey type of head, yet not, yet more like a human, yet not. And they always say it's really hard to distinguish between a primate and a human.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go and find the smaller type again. So we're talking about, say, around about the 4 foot mark.
Okay.
And these are sort of more monkeyish to the next level. But back up to the more man size, they can be described as like a relic human,
Okay.
Neanderthal-ish. They've got that hominid gene in their system where they've got the eye ridges that are very pronounced, the deep set eyes,
Mm-hmm.
splayed nose, etc. But when you go to, say, the larger ones, we're talking maybe 8 to 10 feet, more than likely probably about 8 feet. Some people say 9, but often a lot of people don't judge heights or distance very well.
Okay.
They're more, I think you could say they're definitely more hominid than anything else.
Okay.
So if you look back, for example, on, we'll look at paleontology without trying to bore anyone too much. It all started with Australopithecines, say about 4 million years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys were about 3 to 4 feet tall. They were like primordial hobbits, so to speak. And as time went on, so 3 million years ago to 2 million years ago, they slowly started to grow. Then they died out, and the hominids came in. So the Homo genus stepped in from the Australopithecines, and Homo is Latin for human.
Okay.
And of course, Homo sapiens, sapien being Latin for wise, that's where we are now, so that's wise human. So there's that gap in between. And again, if you look at that scale from the first Homo to Homo sapien, we got progressively taller and taller.
Mm-hmm.
And the human was the tallest out of all of these species of the same genus. Once you got to about, say, 100,000 years to 300,000 years ago, you can draw a timeline of about 5 different species that we know, all living parallel, living, walking together on the Earth. So you'd have, for example, about, and again, now, keep in mind that paleontology, archaeology, it all changes. What you read 50 years ago is different to the facts now, because the next find is going to ruin the facts for
Sure.
what you're learning in university right now. And that's how it progresses, that's how it evolves. It is never a static learning curve, because we don't know it all. And they'll admit they don't know it all. All they can go off is what they found in terms of fossils and teeth, and they extract the DNA. But my point is that in this time period that I'm referring to, it was just a mixing pot of DNA.
Okay.
So you'd have the Homo erectus, you'd have the Neanderthals, Homo habilis, you had one that was called Heidelberg genus, and then the Denisovans. And the Denisovans is very closely linked to humans. And in that mix as well, you still had the modern Homo sapiens. So you had all these guys all walking the earth at the same time, and they were mixing DNA. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And the science and the paleontologists believe that it wasn't really a case of the social interaction and crossbreeding by will. It's a common consensus that a lot of the women were taken by the other genus.
Oh.
And that's something that you still hear about today. And Solomon Islands comes up, for example, when we did an investigation there several years ago. So with that big mixing pot, there was a lot of things going on, and you had a lot of smaller subspecies roaming the planet, and they mixed right around down towards Indonesia, etc. Now, at that time, Australia was linked to the rest of the world. We had a land bridge that came from Indonesia Papua New Guinea down into Australia. And these creatures could easily move to traverse into our continent before it came a continent.
Mm-hmm.
And this land bridge existed up until only 7,000 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And then suddenly gone, and Australia was isolated. So whatever was in Australia was trapped in Australia.
Uh-huh.
And I think one of the more interesting aspects, because, okay, firstly, this is how some of the smaller ones could have got here. And as I'm saying, about the same size as humans and a bit smaller. And that's what they're describing today, that is out there in the bush. A lot of our witnesses, this is what they're describing. Regardless of the big ones, this is something different.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all different varieties of them. And another thing is that science and paleontology will tell you they didn't know whether any of these subspecies were covered in hair from head to foot. They don't know.
Oh,
They
sure.
presume they probably were.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing to suggest that they weren't. And you'd imagine any animal that's covered in hair. I mean, the hair's there for a reason, and that's there for protection from the sun, or the wind, or the cold, just the climate in general. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense that the pre-humans more than likely were covered from hair from head to toe, right?
Sure. Oh.
So you go, okay, well that's great. That explains how a lot of these smaller ones are here. What about the big one? All right. Myself and my good friend, my dear friend Lloyd Pye, before he passed away, we used to kick the can around a lot about Gigantopithecus.
Mm-hmm.
And neither of us were really big fans. Lloyd used to say, well, there's really not much to go on. I mean, as far as the fossil evidence of Giganto, you've got some jaw fragments, just pieces of jaw.
Yeah.
You've got the molars, etc., etc., although there's about 2,000 molars that have been found.
Oh, wow.
So they've reconstructed the jaw pretty much. And again, science, paleontology, they've estimated this creature is going to be anywhere between 6, 7 to 10 feet tall.
Wow.
So that puts it in the right height bracket.
Mm-hmm.
And remember that all these creatures prior to Gracile, they're all more robust than us. So you imagine this, the stature of this. The closest living relative to Gigantopithecus is the orangutan.
Mm-hmm.
Another interesting equation. Now I think, okay, what is the most common colour reported of the yowie? It's a reddy brown.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what the analogy most witnesses use? The colour of an orangutan.
Sure.
Even the striation, also the hair folding down from the arms, etc., just hanging down.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen that with some adaptations of the Bigfoot as well, quite similar. So now you've got the height, you've got the colour. How did they get here? Because I thought they were up around China, Southeast Asia, Vietnam. But recently there's been a discovery that, the fossil remains in Indonesia. And as I said before, that was a part of the land bridge to Australia. So they're well on their way down through that land bridge to Australia. Then land bridge gone, stuck in Australia. Uh-huh. So there's the history lesson.
That's really interesting. Now, of course, with the diversity in sizes and stuff, in the U.S., we hear reports of Bigfoot, some looking more human-like, some looking much more primate, some looking like a Neanderthal with the really protruding brows. There's a lot of physical variations, and so there seems to be an idea that has evolved that there are types of Bigfoot, and perhaps they're like subgenuses of the same family branch. Do you have that same, other than size that you've just explained, but in actually physical reports that people, when they describe them, do they give that variation in when they're giving descriptions?
Yeah, we do, and it does vary. It varies from person to person. But I think, if you had two people describing an event that happened in their childhood,
Mm-hmm.
they'll both see the same thing, but years later they may describe it completely different.
Sure.
People see things in different ways. There's an interesting case that we did last year or the year before at a place called Conungra, and it's involved a truck driver, and a lot of the Australians who are watching, they'll know this story very well.
Mm-hmm.
And he had put his truck into neutral, going down through the range, down through Conungra, and Conungra, it's a well-known area for this creature. In fact, it's only 100 metres up the road that the last sighting was, about a year before then. He has his truck in neutral, and it's a big truck. And I'll give you an example. When I stood up next to this truck, the top of the bonnet was about to here.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't look over it. So he's coming down through the vines, he's got it neutral, he's not making any noise. Comes around the corner, and this thing, on the right-hand side, he's doing a right-hand bank, and as he's coming around the corner, this creature is just leapt off the bank. As he's coming around the corner, he's mid-air, and he comes down, he's hit the brakes, he's locked it up, he's turned the truck semi-sideways, and he's skidding towards it. He said this thing landed on the ground like Superman, one fist, staring straight at him. He said, here's the thing. He said the expressions on the face were human. Absolute human reaction. Which will give me to my next point in a sec. He said the first expression was shock.
Wow.
He said the second, he said just like a human, was embarrassment. He said it stood up and it looked at him through the windscreen.
Sure.
And he said the third emotion, or the first expression, was anger. Just like a human. He took 2 paces and he shunted the front of the truck. He said it hit the truck with such a force, it was like hitting a small Mazda. And he had to go down in his windscreen like this and look up to see the top of his head. Now remember how I said that I couldn't even come up above the bonnet?
Right.
He had to look up to see its head. And he said the head was like a monkey.
Really?
But the expressions were like a human. So there goes the mix, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which brings me on to another thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even getting started into it. How much time do we have left? I'm getting too sidetracked. You're getting me sidetracked.
Sorry.
It's getting me into another thing is danger of these creatures. Now, I have a lot of respect for David Pilates. Pilates, depends on whether you're American or Australian. And he's definitely on the right track. And you'll have all these do-gooders going, oh, they're protectors of the bush, they're lovely, they won't harm you, don't go near them, they won't hurt you. Well, I've got a different story for you, and that's from personal experience. That aside, if you look at it this way, and remember those expressions that I was telling you about off the big monkey-looking thing, this creature, providing its flesh and blood, is biological. It has hormones. It has emotions, clearly. Animals hurt and kill animals. Humans hurt and kill humans. What makes these things any different?
Sure.
Why on earth would somebody say, oh, no, they won't hurt you, and they're wonderful, and they're passive, and they say, no, they're not. And I truly believe that they are responsible for a lot of missing people over the last couple of 100 years.
I would agree. I think that's it would be foolish to assume otherwise, especially with the scale and the scope of these things. I mean, just what they're capable of. If you misjudge that, you're a grease spot, you know? Yeah. Wow. That's very...
Now, I've led a lot of expeditions all over the country in some parts of the world. I've drank arsenic with the Pomone Indians in South America. I've interviewed villages near Mount Roraima about pterodactyls that have been seen coming off Mount Roraima over the last 100, 200 years, giant anacondas, alligators, snakes, tarantulas. But I think the most impressive experiences that I had were probably in Australia, and that all sort of started around about 1995, and I was coming home at 11 o'clock at night. I was living at a place called Mount Tambourine, which is on the Gold Coast hinterland. It's a place called Eagle Heights. And I'd come home at about 11, park my car in, just imagine this, right? So being a mountainous area, you've got a sloping block and you have a pole home and a pole garage where the car parked, you walk around the front and down into there. Beyond the house was, it's a big slope and it goes down to a chicken wire fence. Beyond the chicken wire fence is swamp. And back in those days, you didn't know what was beyond the swamp. I mean, you wouldn't go down there for any reason. It was just unhospitable. You got to the fence, you go, no.
Yeah.
And so I'd come home this night, and I got out of the car, and I'd open the gate, and I go, what is that noise? And here is this thing in the back swamp, making this god-awful noise. And I've never heard anything like it. And I mean, koalas can make a lot of noise, but this is nothing like a koala. And it was deep and it was guttural, like guttural. It was the vocal capacity was far beyond a human. I mean, we couldn't come close to mimicking what this thing was. And whatever it was, I mean, it was pissed off. Yeah. So here is this vocal capacity, and it's walking around on two legs bipedally. Bipedally. It's very clear. You hear it trudging around in the swamp. Crunch, 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 crunch. Clearly very, very heavy. And then it starts to pick up small trees and foliage. And it rips it out of the ground. You hear the roots separating from the soil.
Wow.
You pull it out. And then throw. And it hits all the other trees, bounces, and then drops. Doof. Crunch, 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 rip, throw, and all this sort of thing, the vocal capacities, all that sort of thing was all going on. And I had goosebumps. What? So on this side, on this shoulder here, was my normal little guy saying, you know what? It'd be a really good idea if you went down and had a look, see what that was. You know you've got a porch behind the door? Let's go get it. Let's go. Let's go. Sure. And then he had this one over here going, don't listen to him. Don't listen to him. It's a bad idea. You don't want to know. And I thought, like, normally I'd be listening to this guy. And it was just awful, I tell you. It was horrible. Yeah. This was just, and I'm with you. And so I just had this feeling that I need to just go inside, lock the door, and forget about it. You don't want to know. And so that's what I did. The next day I got up and I asked several neighbours who'd been there for longer than myself. Nobody knew much about it. There's a couple of other instances we had after that. But I started to ask other people as well because I had an inkling. I'd seen a show back in 1994 called The Extraordinary. And there's a story about this girl whose name was Julie Clark, and she lived in a town called Cranbrook. And she was riding a horse through a creek bed by herself when suddenly this creature rose from the side bank and jumped down into the creek. The horse reared, turned around, they bolted, and this thing took off after them. Now, her being right up there on horseback, she said its height matched hers. And she was beside herself, as you imagine. And she galloped all the way into town and went straight to her father, who was a prominent businessman at the time. And then he grabbed a posse of guys and they all shot out there. And they found the footprints and then they found what looked like a bed where she first saw it come from. And that sparked a lot of interest. So that was playing on my mind as well. And I was just starting to wonder, what else could it be? Because no native Australian animal, well, number one, can make that noise. Number two, walks bipedally. Number three, has hands to rip foliage out and then throw it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a kangaroo and it's not an emu. We don't have camels, and they couldn't do that. So that was been on my mind for a bit. And then here's the kicker, here's the cruncher. I moved to a place called Ormo. And all these people who know me, they're going, we don't know all about this story.
Hey, Dean, hold on just a sec, because we're about a minute and a half, or about a minute away from the break. So I don't want you to get in the middle of this, but, ladies and gentlemen, you can hear how amazing this is going. This is going to be an incredible rest of our show, too, so make sure you stick around. We're going to go to our break in just about a minute here, but I just want you guys to know, again, you can of course listen on tfrlive.com, or you can be watching the live stream. If you're hearing my voice and you're not seeing the pictures, head over to youtube.com/paranormal portal and you can watch this live. Both myself and Dean are on camera, and we are going to be continuing to share or to dive deeply into this man's experiences. The phone lines will not be open. We may open them at the tail end of the show here a little bit, but we're going to continue on this journey. And I want you guys to head over to Facebook. Go check out Australian Yowie Research page. It's on Facebook, and this is Dean's group, which has, many of the things that he's discussing are showcased, many of links to other Yowie news. And, of course, check out their webpage, which can be found at yowiehunters.com. And you can head over there. And there's also, it's not only talking about Dean's research, but it's also a repository for claims and people's experiences when they're encountering these things. So it's a great site full of a lot of information. I do want to talk to you, Dean, at some point tonight about the report map, because I got some questions about that, and I think that it's interesting. Also, hopefully we can get into a little bit about the wildfires, because I think that's on all of our minds, the amazing devastation that occurred over there and what you think is going on with the Yowie population. So we have obviously a lot more to get into. But
from the dawn of man,
we're going to break. We'll be right back.
Balance within ourselves.
We are TFR Frequency Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back at it here on the Paranormal Portal Friday show. We hope you're having a good night. Thank you all for joining us. I am joined tonight by Australia's own Mr. Dean Harrison, who is here to talk about Yowies and so much more. That first half hour went great. Although I went total rookie and talked right into the break, which tells you I'm just engaged here. So welcome back, Dean, and thank you again for coming on tonight. This has been epic, incredibly epic so far. But before the break, I interrupted you on a story you're getting into, so if you would please.
Yes, so this is probably one of the most crucial stories in the journey that I've been on, and it's an incredible journey that you just couldn't imagine. So there's a town called Ormo that I'd moved to in 1996. It was pretty close after I'd moved away from the first encounter, so to speak. And this is a semi-rural sort of setting. It's all acreage. And between the township of Ormo and Norfolk, which is the next one, there's a nature refuge, so to speak, that goes all the way across. Now, to the east is the highway, which hadn't been developed just then. At that stage, it was 2 lanes each way, and beyond that was Canefield. To the west, you've got the mountains that go on pretty much forever from the top end of Australia to all the way down to Victoria, so vast wilderness. I was trying to lose some weight at night, and in the process I was going for a jog, and this particular night I was going for a jog at 11 o'clock. The path that I used to jog on was through this nature reserve, and at the time it was pretty dense, and it was swampy, and there's creeks and all that sort of thing flowing through them. The track itself, you could put your hands out both sides and touch the foliage. That's how close it was. Prior to there, you walk down through a field. There's overhead high voltage power lines, and you walk down to the bush through the track. On this particular night, I got to the entrance of the track, and I stopped. I thought, I'll make a phone call before I go for my run. So I deviated and I walked around the bush line behind a clump of trees to make a phone call. To the back of me, again, it's all mown grass up until the road behind me and an overhead street light. And it was a fair distance from the tree line to the road. And I was on the phone for probably about a good 5, 6, 10 minutes. I don't know, I can't remember. And she, with whom I was speaking, and this is a really odd part, she said, "What is all that noise? Makes no sense. How would I not hear this?" So I tuned out of the conversation, and sure enough, there's branches being felled. There's small saplings being broken over. And it just, to this day, it just makes no sense how I didn't hear all this commotion going on behind me. And I thought to myself, it's more than likely a bunch of kids that have snuck out at night, as I used to do when I was in my teens. And I thought, this is a Tuesday night. We used to do this Friday, Saturday nights. That's odd. And the noise sort of subsided. Okay, well, they found their way back out onto the track, back into the conversation, and talking away. And then there was a loud crack, a bit closer behind me. Back in the conversation. Crack, a little bit closer again. And now I'm rationalising, reasoning. There's one person still stuck in there, and he's trying to find his way out. His mates have left him, they've gone. Back in the conversation. And now I'm sort of semi-listening between the conversation and what's going on behind me.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm aware of the leaves slowly being parted like that. And you hear something, the leaves going across, dragging across a body and then closing up behind. And then there'll be a twig break. And every time there was a twig break, silence, didn't move. This is stalking.
Wow.
This is with purpose. And so now I'm no longer interested in the conversation I'm having on the phone. I want to know more about this. And so now I'm totally tuned into it. And yeah, sure enough, I'm hearing a foot breaking a twig, and every time it broke a twig, silence. You give yourself about 30 seconds just to clear the air. Like there's nothing here. And now I put my next foot down. And then you hear the leaves being parted again, etc. And now it's getting closer and closer and closer. And now it's really close. So I said on the phone, I said, I think I've got somebody trying to sneak up behind me. And she's saying, careful, all this sort of thing. I'm going, no, I just want to know, let's find out what's on his mind. Because at the time I was extremely fit and I was boxing. And I boxed and so forth all through my life. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't terribly concerned. And as it got right to the bush line just behind me, suddenly my whole body just shut down. And it was an experience that I'd never had before. It was foreign. Basically, I just locked up.
Wow.
Just locked. I was paralyzed. I guess that's the best word for it, is paralyzed. And you're trying to psychoanalyze the situation. Is this a mind thing? It has to be. Mm-hmm. But why can't I move? And I've got this overwhelming fear coming in from behind. Like I'm feeling something. It's like I could feel an energy, basically. Put it that way. It's like an energy. And it wasn't a good energy. And my hair went up. I had goosebumps. And I just knew that I was in imminent danger. I also knew, and this is like let's just say a sixth sense sort of thing. I also knew not to turn around, not that I could, but not to make eye contact because it's going to make things exponentially worse. Oh. And I just knew I had to get out of there, but I was in a predicament because I couldn't move. And I just managed to sort of turn just a little bit and just enough to see the silhouette standing there, no. At least 8 feet tall. And I just go, oh Lord, what do I do? And I knew, I was basically, it was a time scale. I had no time. I had to do something. So I literally counted into my head, 1, 2, 3. Mm-hmm. You better move. 1, 2, 3, and I forced my shoulder, which forced my hip, which forced my knee, which forced my foot. Mm-hmm. And the moment my foot moved, this biggest raw bellow that you've ever heard in your life. Wow. It was enormous. And the first thing that came to my mind was lion.
Really?
That is the extent of the size of the diaphragm in this thing. Right. It was immense. And if you're thinking lion, you know what a lion sounds like when they roar. Mm-hmm. I know what a lion sounds like. But that's what it sounded like. And I've often described it as something in between a bear and a lion in one. It's that big booming effect. And all the dogs right around and all the acreages are just going bananas. And I was going, woof, and off I went, and I ran. And I was pretty quick, but I wasn't quick compared to this guy.
Right.
And he took off after me, and the bush line went around to my left and went up towards the road where the start of the track was, and mown grass up until the road and the street line. And I am running as fast as I can. He probably started about there or so. He's come right round behind me. He's taken the bush line, and as he's running, he's just crashing through everything. Just smashing through things like that weren't even there. You should have heard it. Just everything was coming down. He was felling everything. And if he wasn't doing that, you hear him self-propelling through the bush. And you hear the bushes bounce back into place. As he's running, you could hear every footfall, bipedal, boom, boom, boom. And you hear him launch over logs, boom, boom. And every time he made a heavy footfall, his diaphragm would bounce. He goes, whoa, like that. So whoa, whoa, type of thing as he's running. On top of that, whoa, whoa, he's bellowing at me. And you know the difference between, and particularly when you're in the bush, if someone's talking directly at you, or if they're looking this way and they're talking, there's a difference in the sound.
Sure.
He didn't take his eyes off me the entire time. And now he's running beside me, like dead beside me, and he's looking at me the entire time. He's not watching where he's going, he's just smashing through everything. And he's yelling and he's this and that. And it was blood curdling. The aggression was so raw. It's like I've never seen anything like it, never experienced anything like it. And then he starts to run ahead of me. And at this stage, while he's beside me, because he caught me so fast, I'm running in a straight line. He's run from there all the way around the bush line, through bush that I couldn't walk through without falling over.
Wow.
And he's just smashed through the whole lot and done probably 3-4 times my speed. And now he's running level with me, and I've just gone, that's it.
Yeah.
It's over. This is it. This is it. This is it. I'm dead. Right? This is the last. This is my last night. I am just about to die.
Right.
And I knew at that point that there was nothing I could do to save myself. There was nothing I could have held in my hand that would have protected me. I could have had a samurai sword and a baseball bat and all these other things that some people carry around. It wouldn't have done anything. This thing would have snapped my neck like a toothpick before I had time to scream. That's how powerful it was. And that's how peed off it was too. It was so annoyed. And when it was doing this, it was like it was personal.
Wow.
I mean, you felt it. It was this energy that was coming from this, went right through you. It was like he just killed its firstborn, and he knew exactly what it was thinking. He wanted me. And now he starts to run up ahead of me, and he started just past me. What's he doing? Because I thought at this stage, this is it. This is where I'm about to die.
Yeah.
And then he starts to run a little bit ahead of me. And oh crap, he's cutting me off. That's what he's doing. So I've turned, I've gone that way, and he sort of lunged out a few steps. And thank God I was on open ground. I was coming up towards the street light. Oh. And he's turned around. I'm looking over my shoulder as I'm running up to the street light. And I get there, and he's turned around. He's walked back over to the bush, just at the entrance of this track. And he's turned around and just swallowed. He's just sitting there, just in the foliage, just watching. And I'm going, did you just hear that?
Oh my God.
Oh wow. So that was a life-changing experience. When you go through an experience like that and you really truly believe this is it, this is when you're going to die.
Yeah.
And by the hands of something like him, you want answers, don't you?
Sure.
You really want answers. You can't let this go. And I knew exactly what it was. There was no doubt in my mind. But by the moment I'd reached that light pole, I knew exactly what he was.
Wow.
There was just no question whatsoever. I know what it is. And I'm still getting goosebumps just talking about it now.
Yeah.
And so that really rocked me. It really scared me. And it was probably only 2 weeks after then I got pulled away from that property. I had to move to Sydney. And I'd spoke to my brother the next morning. And of course I was like a million miles an hour as I am when I get excited about things. And he was just, wow, that's incredible. He did believe me. And then I went and spoke to some of the neighbours. I did a door knock. I needed to know more. I mean, what have people seen? Or what have they heard? And nobody heard anything. And one of my best friends who's living next door, he didn't believe me. He just had that wry smile about him, like, oh yeah, where's the punchline?
Right.
Yeah.
So
And so this is what created AYR, Australian Yowie Research, Yowie Hunters. I looked high and low for answers. There was no information out there at all. And keep in mind that this was also, not pre-internet, but it was on the verge of internet. There was not a lot out there.
Sure.
Probably more so in America than what was available in Australia. And there's no such thing as Google back then. Though I think Microsoft had its own version of a similar thing. So I searched high and low. I tried to find as much information as I could. I went to libraries. There was nothing. There was nothing to help me. I needed answers. I had to find answers. And I wouldn't let it go.
Right.
I would not let it go. And this thing really disturbed me. So when I moved to Sydney, I got involved with the GCBRO with Bobby Hamilton, and I used to correspond with him a lot, and he helped me out in my early days, just with information his experience with the Bigfoot, and that was quite useful. Then I went on to a BFRO site, and I went through, because I'm still searching for anything in Australia,
Right.
and I went through their sightings database, and they had an international, and I went, please Australia, please be there. And there was Australia, and they had one report, and it was from the Blue Mountains. Luck had it that I moved to Sydney, and the Blue Mountains was only about an hour away. So I've read the report, and it was astounding. It was basically it was all about a neighbourhood of people, a street of people. This one family in particular, that it had this reoccurrence of encounters over the past 10 years. Wow, this is incredible. And at the bottom, there was a name. Yes. So you couldn't, I don't think you could Google, well, there's no such thing as Google. You couldn't look anything up on the internet at that time as far as people's phone numbers. So I called the operator, and not the operator, but I called information. I found his address, long and short. And then I gave him a call, and he wasn't very happy. He instructed the BFRO to take his name off that report, and I didn't. And after being disgruntled for the first 5 minutes, I explained my situation and what had happened to me in the past, my last couple of encounters.
Sure.
And he became interested and said, "Well, come on up." So I went up there and I met with them, and it was extraordinary. They had this situation where this creature that they called Fatfoot, and I'm hearing everyone in Australia, here comes the Fatfoot story. Fatfoot was a Yowie, and he was probably about 6 or 7 feet tall, probably about 7. And he used to roam around all their backyards at night time, peering through the window and getting up all sorts of hijinks. And I'll just paint you a picture of the landscape here. I mean, it's high up in the mountains, Blue Mountains. It's very vast wilderness. You could spend your whole life out there and never be discovered. And it goes on for like, I don't know, 10,000 miles this way and whatever that way.
Wow.
And a lot of it we've never stepped foot in. So it's uncharted territory out there. We don't know what's in those valleys and those mountains. So anyway, he told me so many stories about their experiences over the last 10 or so years that they've been living there. And he said, well, we believed we sort of built on his tracks. This was his domain. And this is why he was so angry. He was going around banging on the walls and banging on the doors and that sort of thing in the middle of the night and being really disgruntled. That's how it began. And then I think it showed more of an interest in them than anything else. And he sort of turned into being more inquisitive. And it wasn't just him having these encounters and these visitations. He brought his neighbour over named Ian and his wife, and they said, "Yeah, well, we've seen him as well. We've mucked around with him and we've played the games with him." And games? What are these games? Oh, on Friday night, we'd all gather around and sit in the backyard, bring our deck chairs out and have a few beers and wait for him. And so I'd wait at night time, and the first thing you'd hear is in the hills on the other side of the valley is the first dog going off. Yeah, the next one. Yeah, the next one. And so this is an indication of him coming up through the valley. The dogs are all switched on. And they wake up like an alarm system, like an alert.
Right.
And then suddenly you hear the crunching coming through the swamp. And behind it, there's no fences or anything like that. It was basically homes and swamp into a valley, and the valley went down that way, and the valley went up there, and there's some more homes along the ridge, and had nothing down there. And so you'd hear him go, and you'd hear him come, and his eyes sometimes glowed bright red as they'd come through the foliage. And so this thing would come up, and he'd come from tree to tree, and he'd stand there and wait for them, basically. So they'd also sit there and go, just pretend we can't see him, just talk. And then this thing would go, yeah. No, you're not getting it. No, not interested. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Let's get him! And they'd all get up and they'd run straight at him, and off he'd go. And they'd chase this, and they'd have all their torches on, and they'd chase him all the way down the valley. And then they'd lose him, of course, because he's just too quick. And they'd come back, and they'd sit there, and back he'd come again. Yeah. On with the torches and go chase him. And there's this one time he relayed, one of the residents, he relayed to me, he said that they'd been on their chase and they're walking back. And it was very, very dark. I think he had his torch off, his flashlight off. Mm-hmm. And as he's coming up the track, he sees in front of him, he sees this log. He goes, I don't remember this log being here. As he gets onto the log, he turns the flashlight on, hits this thing fair square in the face as it stands up. He said it was just like a cartoon. He said basically it just leaned into me, opened his mouth and went, he said my head just went back like that, like a cartoon. And the breath wasn't too good.
Oh, man.
And then off he'd go. And because he just stood there like that. So. And the neighbour, the wife next door, she said, oh, well, I was doing the dishes one night, and I saw just below the windowsills on doing the dishes, and below the windowsill, I just saw this tuft of hair. What is that? I'm looking, and then suddenly this thing just stands up right above me and just looks straight down. She goes, just throws the dishes and runs off. And the other neighbours said, we had to cut down the trees around where the lounge room was, because he'd get really close behind the trees at night, and he'd watch us. And he said, I'm not really certain if he was watching us or he was watching the TV.
Oh.
So they ended up cutting all that down. So with all this information, this new information, and being a super sleuth as I am at the time, I brought my maps out and I mapped a pathway of the most likely place that he was coming from, which was the following valley. So I followed this course and I found the tracks, which I believed were his tracks, which made sense. And then I found other tracks that were quite interesting as well. I learnt that running parallel with a dirt road, if you go on the inside, you'll find another track. So therefore he's not walking on the sandy track to leave his prints. He's walking where he's safe, parallel to that road. There's another track on the side. So I went, okay. So I learned from that. When I followed these tracks, and I said, okay, well, it should cross this track here and down into the valley. And where it crossed is a little bit rocky, so it's not going to leave his prints there. That makes sense. He must be coming down from over there. So I used to set up a base camp there for a bit, And it wasn't long until I learned his patterns. He was coming up at the same time every night, roughly about 8 o'clock.
Wow.
And the first night I had my encounter with him, you'd park your car, there's a gate, and I'd cut my way down through the really thick foliage down into the valley, and there's a rocky outcrop, which is kind of like a cliff, goes down and all the way around, and you can actually go under it for shelter if you want to, and then it goes right down deep into the valley, and you can walk around up to the right. Mm-hmm. So I'm lying there one night, and again it's right on 8 o'clock, and I hear this crack. We're going to run out of time, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
I hear this crack down in the valley. Mm-hmm. And then next you hear boom, 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 crack, crunch, boom, 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 and up he comes bipedally, crashing through everything. And I'm going, oh no, because my last experience wasn't too good with one of these things, and I didn't know his personality. I didn't know if it was the same one from back over the other valley. Sure. And I'm just going, oh Lord, no. He's coming straight. He goes underneath, around from where I'm sitting, and he's gone right around me. And I'm just lying down like this, going, no, please go, please, just keep going. And he went right around me and up into the bush and off, and I got, wow.
Amen. Wow. That's incredible. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be right back. We got an hour break upon us, but we'll be returning in just a couple minutes with Mr. Dean Harrison and more of the Paranormal Portal. Don't go away.
Play their games. Everybody loves to place their bets. They don't understand the price I paid. They don't care to comprehend. Trace their lines upon my body, dripping scars across raging anger pours inside me, and their lies keep falling apart. But I'm not talking yet. I'm not talking yet. I'm not talking I am finished with my silence. I am not a stupid boy. No more breaking me with kindness, just you dance upon my joy. Leading me with empty promise, you're just another fucking mess. Taking off the slice of my sanity, just make sure that you're well fed. Look, I'm not
Caroline is not like those she's with. They're attracted to the one thing about her that is different from themselves. Her life force. It is very strong. It gives off its own illumination. It is a light that implies life and memory of love and home and earthly pleasures. Something they desperately desire, but can't have anymore. Right now, she's the closest thing to that.
Poltergeists are usually associated with an individual. Hauntings seem to be connected with an area. A house, usually.
Poltergeist disturbances have a fairly short duration, perhaps a couple of months. Hauntings can go on for years.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hour number 2 is upon us now here on the Paranormal Portal. And our guest tonight is Mr. Dean Harrison from Australia, Yowie researcher, and hell of a guest, as it turns out. But welcome to the show, Dean. It's been absolutely compelling listening to your stories. Now, if you don't mind, something I'd like to ask right on the front end is, how did you get to the point that you were willing? I mean, it's an incredible act of courage to be so terrified by something and then to turn around and actively go after it in this case, because you just had that one experience where it was shadowing you, mirroring you, and stalking you, then to in turn go and stalk something yourself, the very thing that terrified you. How do you get to that point? I mean, because I know you mentioned the quest and all of that, but was it a big internal struggle to do this?
Initially, it was a thirst for knowledge. There was no information available at the time. I made it my role, I guess you could say, for want of a better term, to gather this information and make it available for the public. And when I say make it available to the public, I mean people like me, people like myself who had been in situations and needed knowledge. There was nothing there. Mm-hmm. We're very proud of what we've done with the AYR. We have a database that is the biggest in the world. We have a website that is the largest in the world. We have over 1,000 files online. We have collected data going back from the first white settlers to this day. Our database and our website is that important. There's been so much work and so much research invested in this that the Australian National Library has preserved it. Now we're hoping that in the next 200 years, people look back and say, thank God you guys did the homework, you've made our job a lot easier, if this hasn't been concluded by that time.
So do you think it will be ever? I guess what I'm asking is, do you think that there's pushback from some levels to keep it the realm of folklore rather than allowing it to become a recognized species?
Well, that's sort of getting into a conspiracy.
Yeah.
I'm not one for conspiracies, but yes, I have had my exchanges.
Okay.
With government level. Yeah. Now, in my position, I have been in correspondence over the last 20-odd years with Parks and Wildlife, the military, police on all levels, etc. Mm-hmm. And it's all been quite friendly, except for there was an occasion where they felt that I needed to be looked into, and also my files. Oh. And that was a long time ago. And I think technology has moved on so rapidly over the last couple of decades that if they want to do it, there's nothing I can do about it.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it is an effort in futility with as much as we're plugged into everything. You're right. But I just find that interesting, and I agree. I mean, I don't I don't necessarily subscribe to all the ideas out there, but I think it's interesting that so many people have come to that same conclusion that there was some kind of pushback they experienced. So, you're kind of in a unique situation being in Australia, and I don't know, if it's a matter of governments, that are different and different approaches, but I find that it's concerning, I guess, because there is a lot of evidence out there, and I guess that's the part that's the most puzzling with all of the footprint evidence, including dermal ridges and real, things that would be nearly impossible to fake with any credibility. And then hair samples that have been tested, and the anecdotal evidence is off the charts that people are coming back with these stories, and yet it still doesn't seem to be getting any kind of attention on the scientific level. And that seems surprising to me, because I really believe this would be like the biggest discovery in probably the history of discoveries, because there's a lot of questions that might be answered by understanding and acknowledging these things are out there.
Yeah, well, we had a great report come in, I think, last year, and again, a lot of Australians, they'll be aware of this one.
Mm-hmm.
It was an archaeologist that was doing surveys in the border ranges. Now, the border ranges is a massive mountain range on the border of Queensland and New South Wales. And in his studies, he climbs up through mountains, and he does some pretty rugged climbs.
Mm-hmm.
This particular occasion, he'd gone up through some waterfall cascades high up into the mountain peak there. And as he gets to the next challenging climb, he notices there's something to his right. Mm-hmm. He turns around, and here is this hominid squatting, looking forward, still like a statue, not moving.
Wow.
Covered from head to toe in hair, protruding jaw, eye ridges, all the same traits.
Mm-hmm.
And it's squatting, pretending, in effect, that it's not there. Now, of course, he goes into fear, panic, as he's looking at it, going, because you're trying to register what's going on here. Your eyes are sending a message to the brain, and your brain goes through the filing cabinet and comes up with error 404, file not found. And because he sort of dabbled in that sort of area anyway, he knew what it was, and he wasn't hanging around. So basically, his reaction was, even though he had a camera in his backpack, and that's another thing we can talk about later.
Yeah.
His reaction was flight or fight.
Mm-hmm.
Fight or fight. And he turned and he walked as slowly and calmly as he possibly could until he got out of sight, and then hightailed it back down the mountain. And this left him in a real quandary, because being an academic, you don't believe in this sort of thing. But he was forced to, because he saw it with his own eyes. And he said, this thing that I stood there looking at, he said, that should have been here 2 million years ago, not in 2017.
Good point.
And because of that, because he was taken by it so heavily and affected by it so heavily, he went and got himself a diploma in anthropology.
Oh.
So he could learn more about these creatures. And so he had a pretty good idea about all this. And we spoke to him at length about this and the hypothesis. But my point being is that in the academic world, he's not allowed to mention it. Because we said, have you mentioned it to any of your peers? And he said, no, absolutely not. He said, that would be the end of my career.
Yeah. That seems like such a tragedy, though, because there was and I understand his reasoning. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not like everybody, should put themselves out there no matter what, but it's just I guess it's good to know that there are people out there that are still, subscribing to the idea, having either witnessed it or seen enough evidence that they're willing to look into it on their own. But it would seem like such a powerful statement for someone with that credibility to come forward and boom.
His opinion was that in time to come, there'll be an archaeological race to find fossil evidence, because once the first bone is found, he said it'll be on for young and old. He said, well, they're trying to find the fossil evidence of what was. He said, here are you guys trying to find what still is.
Yeah, these things are not fossils. You didn't get chased by a fossil, that's for sure. Now, what would you say, how fast do you think it was going? You said about 4 times your speed. So you think it was in the possibly 40 mile an hour range that it was running circles around you? Well, I don't know.
Yeah, they've been clocked up to, I'd say probably about 40.
Jeez.
Maybe a little bit more if we go in kilometres. We had one at a place called Woy. He was doing 60 kilometres an hour, which would have been pretty close to that. And it was actually running faster than Usain Bolt. And I think Usain Bolt in kilometres was 44.7 kilometres. And this thing was just as fast, if not faster. But I have heard them being faster than that. So when you're competing against something that's so athletic, and especially agile through the bush, ability to drop to all fours, navigate, and the biggest thing, which I was getting back into my last story, because I mean we're not going to get time even to get to where I got hit by one. So we're not going to get there.
Sure.
There's just too much to cover. We're probably about 10% of the way through.
Well, I'd love to have you back if you're willing to come. I'd love to have you back.
Well, let me just finish this story.
Sure.
Of the Blue Mountains and Fatfoot. So when I last left you before the break, I was on the ledge and this thing had gone past me. So I got a time of when he was coming up. Since then, I spent many, many nights with him. I used to wait until 8 o'clock, and he was like clockwork most of the time. He would come up on either 1 or 2 tracks, and he got to know me. And one of the reasons he got to know me is because I would do this distinct whistling. He'd know it was me, so I did this for safety, but I mean, for him to feel comfortable, I'd whistle this same tune and go, yeah. And we used to play this game over a period of time. We used to play this game called How Stupid is the Human? And I'd be the stupid human.
Okay.
And in this game, he would test his abilities against mine. And this is what the other people were saying. He's just like a big kid. All he wanted to do was play games. And it was so true. He was unique. He was one of a kind. I've never met another one like this personality, another one like this character. So he played this game called How Stupid is the Human? How close can I get to him without him realising, without him knowing? Wow. And so I'd play dumb. So up he would come, you'd hear him coming. And as he gets closer, you slow down, then you go to stealth mode. It's like he thinks he's MacGyver. He's been watching movies through the lounge room window too often. And he's going from tree to tree to tree. And he's being as quiet as he can. He's too heavy. You'd hear the twigs break. And he'd stop just like the other one. Stop. Nothing to hear here. And then move on into the next tree. And I'd have my back to him most of the time, sort of looking up. I'd keep the flashlight off. And you're not over there. Are you over here? Knowing full well he's where he is. Sure. And I'd just play dumb. And you feel it from him. He's going, oh, I am that good. I really am that good. And so I'd let him get as close as I felt comfortable. And as soon as he got within a certain perimeter, and that was pretty close, and also keep in mind that I was right next to my car as safety. I would never have tried this away from my car. So push came to shove. If I had enough time, I'd probably just head first straight through the door. Providing I didn't lock my keys in like I did one night and have to smash the window.
Oh.
So he'd play this game, so he'd come up, and then you'd get so close. And I used to wonder if I didn't put the spotlight on him right now, what would be the next level? What would his next play be? Because there is nothing between that tree right there and me standing here. and he's got to like level 10. What's his level 11? Surely he's, I mean, maybe he's there too going, what's his next move? Or I don't know what my next move is. And so, I mean, it was so uncomfortable. You'd have to put the spotlight on him, and off he'd run all the way back down the valley. And after he'd finished, when he got down the valley, he'd come all the way back around, and he'd start again from a different angle. And he'd do the same process. And he'd play this all night, every night that I was there. And it was amazing. So being in this situation where you had something that was, I mean, I almost call it reliable. If I had the equipment now, back then, with something that put itself in this sort of open position, I would have so much footage. Unfortunately, we can't find another one like this one. Not yet, anyway. So I reached out to production companies, TV stations, anyone that had cameras or could help me. And remember, this is pre-mobile phones, and there's no cameras and phones or anything like that. The extent of my inventory was like a little Kodak camera. It was about $12, and it had about a 6-yard flash range. That was the extent of it, right?
Yeah.
Compared to now, we've got flare and everything. And so I reached out to all these people, but nobody took me seriously back in the 90s. And then I remember I had a couple. So during this process, AYR was created, and I was collecting reports from all these different people. People were writing in, and we were saying we create something really great. And two of my guys had come down from Queensland, and this crazy Phil, and because he was just crazy, and Colin Warren, because he just got out of jail, and that's the best help I could get at the time.
Sure.
And so they came down because they wanted to experience and see Fatfoot. And so we went out to the location, and I said, well, he'll be here soon. And normally turns up about 8. I said, Phil, you go down over there behind that tree stump. I said, himself and Warren will be over here on this track. He's going to come up on one or the other. So Phil had this U-Butte camera, and he went down and he squatted just on dusk. He went down to this tree stump, and he squatted down and he hid behind it. And myself and Warren were over here on this track, and we're hiding behind trees. And then, you know, it's like hearing clock on for work. Morning, Ralph. Morning, Sam. Crack, 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 crunch, boom, 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 boom. Up he's coming, crashing, 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 and then he goes to stealth, as I said before. As he gets close, goes to stealth. And then we're not hearing anything. Silence. But I did know that he was coming up on Phil's track. It wasn't ours. So we were sort of standing by going, Phil, take the shot, take the shot. And then after a little period of just nothing, suddenly there's all this commotion, crash, bang, and Fatfoot's on his way straight back down the valley, and we've run over to Phil, and Phil's standing there as white as a sheet, shaking like a leaf, camera in his hand. Phil, what happened? He said, well, I was down below, I couldn't hear anything, and I put my head up to see what was going on. At the same time, he put his head up. He was on the other side of the tree stump. And he's like, whoa! And I think Fatfoot would have got just as much of a shock as what Crazy Phil did. And so we lost him for about, that particular night, we lost him for about 5 hours. And we went back up to where the cars were, and we cooked a bit of dinner. And Warren turns to me and he says, do you think he's still here? I said, oh, yeah, he's still here, and he's out there watching us. Mm-hmm. And with that, I bent over, and I picked up the spotlight. And I said, he's down there. Remember, it's like pitch black.
Sure.
And I said, he's out here somewhere, and he's definitely watching us. And I stood back, and I just randomly pointed in the bush, hit the button, hit him fair square right on the chest. It was beautiful. And the shock he got. And he ran. I mean, he's standing out in the open. He wasn't hiding behind anything. He was in the actual open laughing at us. You humans are blind as bats. And he's laughing at stupid humans.
Sure.
And then he's run to the next tree, but this tree's only this wide, and he's this wide. And then he runs to the next tree, which is wider, and he goes down to all fours, and then runs back down the valley and before he starts his next process. But when I hit him with the spotlight, he was massive chest on him, massive, huge, like a bodybuilder. He was a reddish brown. Remember, like I was saying about orangutan, Gigantopithecus, and all that sort of thing.
Sure.
So that sort of hair colour is like about the same sort of length, but this big chest like a bodybuilder. He had these cannonball shoulders on him. I mean, he was a powerful looking unit. Now, my point about this actual bit of the story is about their eyesight, and this is probably one of the most important parts about these creatures is their eyesight, and this gives them the ability over us. They can see us at night time, we can't see them. And as myself and Lloyd Pye used to talk about was the eyes, and the heavy ridges that come over and protect the eyes, and the eyes being sunken into the skull. It's to protect their eyes, their super sensitive eyes during daylight, because it's too bright for them, you know. So that's why they come out at night time a lot more, and or stay in the treed canopies in the valleys where the light's not so sensitive. But having these sensitive eyes gives them this tremendous vision at night time, this tremendous clarity, which is why you can see them running through the bush we would trip over, walking, right. And they're just like, straight through it. And this is why they can see us, we can't see them. So here's Fatfoot, knowing exactly, because he's had so much interaction on the boundaries of human population. He knows that he stands out there in people's backyards and people just walking past him. They're not even seeing him. And he just knew that we were blind. It was just by flick that I put the spotlight on. I could have faced it anywhere, but I happened to hit him on the chest. So therefore, we're walking past them so often and we wouldn't even know.
Right. That's intense. They can, and I've heard people that have seen them, and they when they do finally see them, they're like, it doesn't seem like most people have a frame of reference for the size, because I guess we're kind of conditioned to look for something about our size, and when there's something that's so much bigger, there's some people that have walked, right up, and then they realize that big tree that's there is not a tree at all, and this realization comes in, and boom. And that happens a lot.
Yes, it does.
Wow. And that's absolutely, I mean, it's to me, the big thing, I guess, to see one, I would think would be so incredibly powerful, but you can't blame people for not taking pictures, because when you do become aware of something that huge and that enormous, it's so far out of our frame of reference that the terror would be overwhelming. And I don't know, someone like yourself, of course, who's conditioned and, you've had a fair amount of exposure, I'm sure you could probably dial it in much better than most. But like if I saw one, I'd be scraping my underwear. I wouldn't be thinking about my camera.
Yeah, well, now after I was hit by that one in 2009, that was another game changer for me. I'm not quite as bold as what I used to be.
Wow.
It really took the wind out of me, but that's not a story for now.
Sure. Well, yeah.
We get to that.
Yeah, I hope we will. The thing that I think is interesting is what you've been saying all along is that you haven't found another one like that one. So there is really a huge diversity in their temperament.
Yes, absolutely. And as I was explaining before, their personalities are diverse as a human or an animal. So when people say, "Oh no, they're kind, they're passive," no, everyone has a bad day, and there's good and bad in everyone, whether it be a human or be it an animal. So what makes them any different? Nothing.
Right. Yeah, I think that you're right, though. I mean, there are plenty of people that they romanticize the hell out of it, which is I mean, it's not a bad thing, but I think it sure could be dangerous. I appreciate that they're coming from it on an esoteric level and trying to think of these things as, more spiritual guardians than these unknown hominid type beings. But I think that's also a good reminder that, they could be just like a grizzly bear, or they could be, just like a crabby neighbor. You never know. I mean, they might be okay. They might be horrible, but it's a gamble.
Another part of this show I was hoping to get to at the latter stage was the anomalies. And this is a part that I know that you're going to be really interested in.
Oh yeah.
But again, I don't know that we're going to have time for that either.
Sure.
There's just too much to run through. I'm not there yet.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Quickly, just before the break, you had mentioned that Fatfoot, his eyes glowed. Do you think was it literally glowing, or was it just the reflectivity of light?
Well, this is where we sort of get back into the anomalies list
Okay,
about
yeah.
lines. Yeah, are they self-generated or are they reflective? And that's a question we can get right into because there's a lot of stories, and I've seen things myself, and you can't explain them. And not to harp on Lloyd Pye again, but another thing that we used to discuss was the glowing eyes and how they can glow, and that's pretty interesting.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll get into as much more as we can. We got one segment left. It's just flown by, but we'll be right back. Don't go away. ladies and gentlemen. Last segment of our show tonight. It's been an incredible journey, and it's gone incredibly fast, but we owe that all to our guest tonight, Mr. Dean Harrison, who's joining us all the way from Australia. And, having one segment left, Dean, I want to make sure that whatever you want to spend this segment on, you can lead us where you want, because, it's gone too fast.
Okay, well, let me just mop up.
Okay.
So I'm going to finish Blue Mountains and Fatfoot just as quick as I can. I hope I'm not boring anybody.
No.
There was a time that I had been... And remember I said that Fatfoot used to steal clothes off clotheslines. Oh, actually, I may not have said that. He used to take clothes from clotheslines, dog bowls, loose things around people's homes, backyards, and take them down back into the swamp. Oh. And there's one night that I'd parked, and I was there for a bit, and I didn't think he'd turn up. I was sitting on a railing, and it would have been about 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and I'd gone for a wander not too far away, and when I came back, there's a fresh pair of white socks sitting right next to my car. And I wonder if that was... I mean, they weren't there before, and there's no one else there, so I just wonder if he'd been sitting there the entire time. Another time I was there, I was taking exception to some foliage damage. There's a man walking down the track, having a bushwalk, and he looked at me, and he starts to cut through the bush right towards me, which I thought was odd. Mm-hmm. And then he begins to question me about what I'm doing there, which I thought was odd. It turned out that he was the local police sergeant. And I explained to him that there's a Yowie in this area, and if you have a look at this, how else would you explain it? And then he'd looked at what I was showing him and sort of took his head off and thought, wow, I did not know they were here. And so I didn't know he was a police sergeant at this time. And he said, I'll tell you exactly where they are. I said, I didn't think they were here. He said, if you go down to, and he went to a certain town, a little bit to the west, he said, that's where they are. And then he explained he was a local police sergeant. And then he was talking about cases that they've had where they've had to go find missing people. Oh. And cases where footsteps pretty much just stopped dead, went no further. All these strange anomalies. Mm-hmm. And then the latest case at that time was a dismembered body that they had to deal with. And he said, pretty much we were walking around picking up body parts in a bag, including the head. Oh. He said, all the boys at the station, he said, they all firmly believe that this was Yowie related. Mm. I said, but no, I'm not too sure. But he said, remember this, as the local police and as being the sergeant, I have been informed by a higher authority not to cause public hysteria about this creature, which you can read a lot into. I know on a previous show of yours, you had mentioned some strange thing about an old lady that sometimes turns up. And I think this is probably getting onto the anomalies, which we shouldn't be touching on. Actually, I might leave that. Okay. I might leave that. But what I will say now, this one here, and this is the wrap up of the Blue Mountains. Okay. There's one particular night, and I hate telling this story because it's embarrassing. One particular night, it's a full moonlit night. The track was a sandy track, white sand, lit up, and I was standing off the track in the foliage with my little $12 camera and waiting for the big guy. And he wasn't turning up, and I'm getting impatient. I'm sitting there, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting. And time's sort of ticking by, and I'm waiting. And then I hear this come through the bush on the other side of the track. And that's definitely four legs. It's getting closer, getting closer. And out comes this stupid-looking dog. And well, okay. And he's come out with his snout on the ground, and he's on the scent of something. And he's come this way, and he's up and down right in front of me, right in front of me. And it's lit up. It's lit up perfectly. And And I'm going, with the camera in my hand, a finger on the button, I'm going, shh, go away. And so, and he's continuing on with his business. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. He's going to give my position away.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm thinking, where have I seen this before? I've seen this before. I just can't put my finger on. And remember, and forgive me because it was back in my early days.
Mm-hmm.
I was still a bit naive. And I'm trying to make out what it was. And he's low to the ground. He's got sort of shortish sort of legs. He's got this longer sort of snout that's a little bit squarish. And he's got this long, rigid tail that comes out in the back. And he's got these stripes all the way down his back, from the back flank and then from the back of the tail.
No way.
And I just couldn't make out what this thing was, but whatever it was annoying me. And I wanted it to go away. And then finally he did go away. And all the way home, on the drive home, I was thinking, what's that thing? I've seen it before. And I'm lying there in bed, and I've rolled over and I've grabbed Out of the Shadows, which is a terrific book by Paul Cropper and Tony Healy on Australian cryptids.
Mm-hmm.
And I reckon I've seen it in there. So I've opened up the page, and there it was.
Oh my God, the thylacine?
Thylacine, Tasmanian tiger.
Oh my God.
And there's some people that spend their entire lives out there researching, trying to get some sort of evidence of this creature, because there's like $100,000 reward if you do.
Uh-huh.
And here I was sending it away with my phone in my hand, the finger on the button, going, shh, go away. So there's the embarrassment part of it.
Oh no. Well, that is cool though. I mean, I respect that though, because that's amazing. That's evidence. That's proof that they're still out there.
I actually did a documentary on that with Discovery Channel.
Uh-huh.
And reenacted the whole stupid thing, which I wasn't very happy about. I mean, what are the chances, right? What are the chances?
Oh my God, that is amazing. But I'm glad to hear they're out there. It seemed like a real tragedy to have lost them in the wild. So they're just got a lot more cunning, I guess.
We had a chat yesterday, you and I, Brent, about sometimes when you're out on an expedition, you get thrown a curveball.
Mm-hmm.
Something happens and I've got quite a few of these to draw on, but one in particular comes to mind. Now I'm busy looking at the time. It's going to beat us. Mm-hmm. But I'm still up to the good stuff yet.
Yeah.
There's this place called Mount Kembla, which is below Sydney in New South Wales, and it's notorious for strange things going on. And we had an expedition there one weekend many years ago, and I was teamed up with a guy by the name of Craig, and Craig was a musician. Mm-hmm. And so we'd spent the first night there, NTR, nothing to report, not a lot going on, there's a few noises here and there. We changed locations, and we parked in, the top of Mount Kembla and where we were in relation to Mount Kembla, nobody goes there. We were just out in the wilds, the backlots, right? Mm-hmm. And we'd parked off the sandy track into a little alcove. And I said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to play lone camper, which is something that we do. You'll be the lone camper. You have barbecue, the sausages, and this and that. You'll sit there and play the guitar. I'll be in the car, seat back, no one can see me. And we'll see if we can draw one of these things in that way. Because often if there's just one person, you've got a lot bigger chance. You've got 2-3 people, your chances diminish. Mm. So he's out there, and it's probably about midnight-ish, I'm guessing. Mm-hmm. And he's strumming away on the guitar, and he's having a bit of a sing. And I'm sort of starting to fall half asleep. And it's just pitch dark outside. Mm-hmm. And all I can hear is him just strumming on the guitar. When suddenly I hear this female scream, this curdling scream out of nowhere. And I just sat bolt upright. and it wasn't a female, it was Craig. and and I've never heard a man scream like a woman to that capacity in my life. And I'm looking, and he's not strumming anymore. He's just sitting there, white as a sheet, just looking forward. Craig, are you all right? Nothing. Put the windows down a little bit further. Craig, are you all right? Nothing. And he's just sitting there, still. This is really odd. So I'm sort of looking up ahead of him and what's going on? So I get out of the car and I walked up to him. I said, Craig, did you see something? And he just goes, I said, where? And he's not moving. Craig, up there? He goes, near that tree? I said, I'll go up and have a look. Yeah, I'll go up and have a look. Don't go up there. I said, Craig, I'm going up there. So I grabbed my flashlight and I walked up, and he's just in horror that I'm doing it. And I walked to this tree that had a fork in it. Mm-hmm. And I walked down the tree and looked up and panned around. And I looked back down and said, there's nothing here. And he's still just white as a sheet. And I walked down and said, Craig, what did you see? And he's really finding it hard to get the words out. And basically what had happened was he was sitting there playing the guitar, and this face appeared in the fork of the tree. And he said it was the most demonic looking face. He said it was like looking into the eyes of the devil.
Oh, God.
He said it was white. It was shaped down like so. It was, he said, you've never seen pure evil like I witnessed. And he said, not just that, he said, when it looked into me, it looked into my soul. He said, I felt it. Oh. And it was just, he was really disturbed about this. And so it became time to go to bed. And I mean, he was really shaken up, believe me. I mean, I can't under-emphasize this enough about how shaken up he was about it. And during the night, both in the car, he'd finally fallen asleep, settled down, fallen asleep. And during the night, I woke to a vibration in the car going on. And then, what is that? Mm-hmm. I mean, is that a truck? Is there a truck parked behind us? I mean, it couldn't be. We're like on a little track.
Yeah.
Can't be truck. So I sort of looked around, and the entire forest is just lit up rose gold. The entire forest. And so I'm thinking to myself, yeah, it's got to be a truck, and he's got his brake lights on, just illuminating the whole area. Mm-hmm. Craig, wake up! Craig, wake up! Damn it, Craig! No, he's not waking up. So I'm looking around, and this is crazy. So I've turned around and I've looked behind me, and there's nothing there. There's nothing this way, there's nothing that way, there's certainly nothing that way. Check again, there's nothing there. And the illumination, Craig, wake up! He will not wake up. Oh. And I'm going, hang on a second, if that's not coming from there, or there, mm-hmm. Uh-oh. And then, and he wouldn't wake up, and I wasn't getting out of the car for anyone. And then this thing just, and then it just all went back to normal. So that's that sort of thing that can sometimes happen on operations during expeditions that I wanted to throw at you because I mentioned it to you yesterday when we were talking off air.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And you know, that's obviously there's a lot of people that believe that there's some coordination or that these Yowies and Bigfoot are extraterrestrial in origin. I don't know what to do with information like that. I mean, I have no point of reference, but it is interesting. And I don't think that that's what you're trying to say either, but I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you've heard of that. Do you have any kind of feeling about that?
Yeah, well, that's actually going to take an entire segment to get through.
Okay.
I'll try and do as quick as I can. Self-illuminating eyes. Here's a quandary. Because in situations where you have no moonlight, you have a heavy forest canopy plus cloud cover, there is no reflection at all. And so many people who come to us and tell us their stories, they talk about these self-illuminating eyes. Now, these eyes can vary in colour. Normally, they're between yellow or red being the normal. In my case, white, and that has been reported again. We've also heard people say they changed colour.
Oh, yes, I've heard that too.
They went from yellow to red. They were self-illuminating, absolutely no reflection from anything. In my instance, no reflection, 100% impossible. These things were self-illuminating. How does it happen? The tatum lectum in the eye, the this, the that, the algae, I've had all sorts of things thrown at me about, maybe it can happen this way, maybe it can't. But their eyes are certainly very unique to ours. They are not the same. And, we get back onto the same story about their eyesight over ours, their abilities over ours. Just having physical abilities over ours, so that's one thing. But having eyesight and having eyes, you got no chance. We've had now this one's a killer. Sideways blinking eyes.
Oh, really?
You like to talk about scary stuff.
Yeah.
Well, this is pretty scary. And this is one of the stories I really want to tell you about, but we don't have time now. Because it was really good. It was really good. And it's one of the worst I've heard.
Oh, my God.
And it really shook the guy up too. In fact, he's had to go to counselling a few times because he was a bit messed up after this. And this is the thing. I mean, in our position, people come to us for counselling. Remember when I was saying, well, I had no one to go to, and we wanted to be those people that you can come to. We have people come to us and say, I need to talk, because they're not dealing with it. PTSD, I mean, it's very, very prevalent. A lot of people don't see the Australian bush the same way again. They're not the same. They're different somehow. And we have heard cases where people have suicided because they couldn't handle it. They get too obsessed. It's too consuming. They can't let it go. And it takes over their world. And speaking to like-minded people is so important. I know in one instance, one of the people went to a counsellor, really shaken up, going, well, I need help. And all the counsellor did was saying, you didn't see that.
Oh, God.
There was no such thing. He said, by the time I walked out, I was feeling worse than when I went in there.
Yeah.
And so talking to like-minded people and having that support is one thing about AYR. That's what we're here for. And that's what I wanted about AYR from the beginning, is to have that. And this is why, again, the database is so important. You can dial in on the database. If you've seen something, you can put your town or suburb in, and you can bring up all these different files. That's a bit of solace for a few people. And I'd have to thank Paul Cropper and Tony Healy, authors of the Yowie Out of the Shadows, like the third book, the trilogy. This one's based on AYR, all our files, and the next one is as well.
Oh, cool.
That's coming out shortly, and they really helped a lot with a lot of the historical files that we have online, and they're great friends and support to have. Double row teeth is another one, and I know that this has come up with the American Bigfoot a couple of times. Double row teeth. I haven't seen it myself. I hope I don't. Gliding motion, not like it's running like a conventional human, seemingly gliding, and silent as they pass. We hear a lot about that. How that happens, how they do it, I don't know. But it comes up, and it's not a once off, it's not two off, not thrice. It comes up quite a bit. It wasn't quite running. It was gliding.
Yeah.
So there's a few disturbing things. Then you have the disappearing, just vanishing into thin air. And now I've got another story about this as well. We're not going to have time. Telepathy. There's another one.
Yeah.
And I've got more stuff to cover in that as well. Don't have time on that. Cameras shutting down. Batteries being zapped. Now, are all these things that, it was just coincidence? Maybe. Could be. Flashes of light.
Yeah.
I know Gary Lynn spoke about this at one stage. He's a fan of yours.
Mm-hmm.
And I've spoken about this topic myself. But, you get flashes of light and sometimes just sounds that just shouldn't be there, like rumbling sounds.
Right.
Oh, boy, my gosh. We've got so I'm just looking at a list over here because I've got some cheat sheets. And we go into vocal capacities, hominid versus hominid. The UFO Association by in orbs and
Orbs,
the megafauna that's seen in Australia and around the world. There's just too much to cover. So we'll just keep it to flesh and blood, Yowie.
Yeah.
And that's how they came to this continent, was via the land bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And they started off as Australopithecines. New genus had been Homo. And flesh and blood.
Yeah. Now, do you think, just this is something I hope we can discuss quickly before the end of the show, but do you think they can see the infrared spectrum, like the trail cams, how they always avoid trail cams? They can always seem to see them in yard lights, motion lights and stuff. They just know where that range is, and they just don't trigger it. What do you think?
Absolutely 100% correct.
Mm.
If you want to protect yourself from one of these creatures, put a heap of trail cams around your house. You know what that is? No, we did pretty solid investigations into this many years ago, and we drew comparisons with a lot of the Bigfoot researchers. Exactly the same outcome. So there's a place, still looking at the time, freaking out. There's a place in Taree, New South Wales, and we got called to this location where there's a resident that he had years worth of this thing stalking the house, and they were pretty scared. And I can get around to his stories, which is just amazing. There was this one time, I know I'm going to get sidetracked now, there's one time on this property, we had a film crew because we were shooting a documentary, and I said it was at night, we'd already had an encounter, a visual encounter, a very good one. And I said to the cameraman, but prior to this, I said, bring out infrared. And so he's brought out his IR, and he had a big one like this that sat on this big camera.
Sure.
And said, this is where he's coming from, up this hill here. So I want you to sit up right near the top and just a little bit to the side, because you're going to get him as he comes down, and he won't be far away. So he goes up there, and he's sitting there. So we're all waiting. And we're waiting, and then suddenly this guy yells, and he comes running all the way down. What happened? He said, I'm waiting, and I'm sitting there, I'm really quiet, and he said, along he comes, crunch, 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 and then this, and it sees him, and the infrared, boom, just blows up like that.
Yeah.
And he turns around and he runs down. But that wasn't my point. We're talking about infrared in general. So on this particular property, I'll just use this one analogy because we've got many. There's a trap that this creature used to use, and we set up infrared packs with our hidden cameras. And this is again prior to today's technology. So
Sure.
Back in the day, we used to make our own. We made our own everything from camera IR packs to you name it. We made it, and so we set all these up. And it was only a matter of probably about a week or two and they were set up so this thing had to walk past them, because there's a shroud this way. It had to walk down this track and walk past them to be seen. So we weren't shining it back up where it's coming from. And as it comes down, you can see it's gone this way, and then it's gone, and he's gone all the way right around there.
Wow.
And we did that a lot. And yeah.
That's amazing.
So that was just one analogy. Yeah, they can see it. So every time you set up infrared, and I've ruined an area, absolutely ruined one of the best areas at Springbrook by putting trail cams around. Everything stopped. It just stopped dead. I had everything going on. And again, I can go over that. We've got to run out of time.
Yeah.
I just want to do a quick shout out to a couple of friends. We have 3 podcasts predominantly in this country. One of them is a good friend and associate colleague of mine, Sarah Bignall. She has Yowie Central. It's really good stuff that she's doing over there, and fully support that. And we have Yowie Chronicles with Tony, and then we have Cade Moyer. I know you're watching, Cade. Cade Moyer, your friend Cade.
Yeah. Yep.
With Believe, and I know he likes to get his plug out there, so go and check it out. Believe.
Amen, brother. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it, and you've made it an incredible journey.
Unfortunately, we didn't have enough time to get through it all.
Well, we'll try again, maybe. We love you all. Thank you all for being here. Have a great night, and we'll see you next time on the Paranormal Portal.